fellow investors. Welcome to another episode of Ritter on Real Estate, where we teach you how to passively invest like a pro. Today, my guest is Jim Monk, and Jim is the president of a company called CLOZZITS. And CLOZZITS has developed a program to increase rents 3 to 5% while improving the net operating income and asset value of your properties, and all without multifamily owners laying out much capital. His goal is to differentiate beyond the normal amenities and tap into a new area of construction development, renovations, and property management. And Jim, I'm very excited to have this conversation today because I wanted to have you on because I read about your company and I was just, man, that's a novel idea. That's not something that I've considered as a way to add value and something I really wanted to learn about.
Well, thanks for having me on first off. And so we think it's a novel idea, actually, and something like no one's heard of, or it's just now becoming part of the mainstream. So conversation. But yeah, so, you know, we, again, Jim Monk, I'm part of CLOZZITS, and our focus is the multifamily industry. And so we go out there and we show ownership how they can tap into a resource that they are unaware of and really gain revenue, additional revenues that they just weren't expecting, Kent. And we're out there, we're evangelizing it, and we're talking about it because, to your point, I always tell our salespeople internally that a lot of what we're doing is breaking through the condition that people look at the closet or just eating part of an apartment and go, well, this is the way it's been. And so we exist for that reason, to go out there and talk about it, and happy to be on the show.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. Love that idea. And we'll dig into the details around it because it seems like there's really something here. But before we do that, let's take a step back, Jim, and just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got to be where you are today.
So started out, it's a kind of windy path. I think most of us don't expect to be here. I definitely didn't expect to be here. So, 20 years ago, right after getting out of college and so forth, went into the financial services industry. So ran 3 large scale, from kind of ground floor up, large scale financial services companies that ultimately we exited on, or that I exited on the last one, and did quite well with those. And, nothing too sexy about financial services, but was able to get out, I'm dating myself a little bit, right before the 2008 crash. So I was very blessed in that sense to see a little bit of writing on the wall and say, okay, we have someone that's looking to buy us. Let's just, let's go ahead and pull the ripcord and get out. Yeah. So we did.
Good timing.
It was perfect. It couldn't have been any better, really, in my opinion. So, but what led me to being where I'm at today is starting to passively invest in other companies and into real estate, both in commercial and multifamily. And, kind of where this led me was, like a lot of us, I think that our passive investors, you're asking the questions, how can I get more return on my investment? And what happened to me, at least, was I was talking to a friend of mine who had done a lot of renovations. He ran one of the largest renovations companies in the country for multifamily. And I said, look, we've done the backsplashes, we've done the flooring, we've done all these things. And I'm just trying to move the needle just ever so slightly now. I mean, I'm talking 2 to 5%. And if I can get an ROI in a 3 to 4 year period, I feel like I'm hitting a home run. And, and this is all pre-COVID and everything. And he said, well, I said, what are the big guys doing? What are the guys that have 100,000 units plus doing? Because that's the groups he was working with. And he goes, well, they're doing all about the same thing you guys are doing out there that are smaller than that. I mean, there's just not much more to be done. A lot of these properties are in their second or third kind of iteration of renovations of some sort, or remodels or facelifts. And if they haven't, then you're talking some significant dollars, but the most kind of have, if you're talking about B class and A class property sets.
Sure.
C's and D's, you still kind of run into those gems that you can really put some money into and see a great return, but it's getting more difficult, as you know. And it all comes down to yield. And so looking at it, I said, well, doing this almost 30 years at that time. He came back to me probably a couple of weeks later, and he said, the closet hasn't changed. And I said, why? He goes, there's no effing money in it, to be precise. That's what he said. There's no effing money in it. because why would people put money into something that they're not going to get a return on?
Sure.
That, well, times are changing. I mean, I have a nice closet in my own home. I have friends that do. And I was sitting there talking to one of my brothers, and I was looking at his apartment. I'm like, this is the same stuff I had, 20, 30 years ago in college and stuff. And so,
Yeah.
So I looked at it and said, well, maybe there is a way to make that happen. And so I went out and started testing the market within my own properties and found that, yeah, there was a market here for this. And what led us to the business side of this was we had people, like you're probably familiar with, that go out and shop you. Your competition starts shopping you.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're walking our property sets, and we knew it. It's okay. We do the same things, in that. And I got a call from one of the largest multifamily groups in the state of Texas who said, hey, who are you working with on your system? Because we really would like to talk to somebody to put it in ours. Because I think you guys are getting some pretty good rent increases off of that. And that's kind of the aha moment. You go, I think we have a business here. And that was about 2.5 years ago that we started.
That's awesome. So you were able to identify a need. You're kind of looking for it in your own business, right? Saying, how do we
Correct.
continue to add value, right? And you ever think outside the box, get some expert advice, and then you start testing it in your own portfolio.
Correct.
First. And what kind of results did you see as you were testing it?
So originally it was around a 2% rent increase, and we're talking C and B property sets. So we were really kind of testing those and going, okay, what can be done? And again, I'm a passive investor, but because I'm an investor nonetheless, an owner, we went to our management company and said, look, we're going to be doing this. And so we worked with our partner there. And I went to a local cabinet company and said, look, I want you to build these. They were not cost effective at the time because we were just kind of getting it off the ground. But what we found very quickly is we could dial in at about a 3 to 5% rent increase. So the higher the class, and really our product is designed for those ownership groups that are looking at a B to A property set.
Okay.
That's what the sweet spot is, that want to see a 3 to 5% rent increase. And so we were getting in Dallas here, we were getting between $35 and $40 rent increases per month. So right. you can back into that. And so what I kept looking at was, how's that impacting the NOI or net operating income? And how's it really impacting the asset value of the property set?
Yeah.
And so you can really run into those numbers, especially where cap rates are today. Yeah. You can look at it and go, that's a significant amenity improvement. And my ROI was running between 2.5 and 3.5 years. Our average client today, which we can get into stats on who we are today as CLOZZITS, is averaging about 37% ROI over a 3-year period.
Wow, that's a fantastic return. Then
it is. So I can't preach that. I'm like, that's a big number. And that's actually kind of, we're not through COVID, but that's getting through COVID. That's where we're at today. And if you look at all the economic indicators, I mean, rents are going up in a lot of the market set throughout the country. Right. And when we're working with, and what we started doing was to kind of fast forward to where we're at today and who we are, that aha moment became something where we said, okay, we've got a real business here. So let's go manufacture the product. So we're vertically integrated. So we are the manufacturer today with 3 plants. Gotcha. We manufacture, design the product, ship the product, and install, or we will sell the raw materials to our clients and teach them how to do it themselves if they're doing their own self-fulfillment.
Gotcha.
And so,
very cool.
And so now we're ramped up through 1 year, and we're in 17 markets going to 32 in the next year.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome growth. So let's talk more specifically, because, okay, we're talking about closets, obviously.
Yeah.
But maybe what I'm imagining you're doing is not what you're really doing. So tell us exactly what CLOZZITS is now, and what are you actually doing to improve the closet in these units?
So, and I'm gonna pull out I guess what I call an example here. And the reason why it helps is because for most of us, this is what we deal with. It's a wire rack.
Yep.
Or MDF based product. It's a rod and a shelf. And for most of us, and what we identified when we sat down and talked to the residents was, we were coming and going, why would you be willing to pay extra for this? And there were a couple of things we heard. One is, I'm looking for more organization. So we actually improve the ability to use the space more. Ours is a high quality product, so you can put up to 400 pounds on the system. You know, so the above shelf that you see above me here, this is storage space. Below is storage space. And so you're increasing the storage space. That was the first thing they said. The second thing, probably more important actually, was a lot of the millennial generation that this was hitting on said, look, we're looking for resort type amenities. We want to feel good in the environment we're in, especially shelter in place now. And so we're willing to pay for that because, you know, we're seeing all these shows out there around organization, around all these different things. And so I think it's just an ideal time. It's not a trend that's going to go away. It's just improving because, let's be real, more and more people are renting today, and they're looking at what people are doing on TV. They're looking at what people are doing at HGTV in their homes and go, I can get that in my residence. I want to get that in my residency now in my apartment that I'm renting. And so for us, what that's driven us to is working with large scale. We've started with large scale companies, large REITs and multifamily ownership groups to go into, we started in Dallas, and now we're, like I said, in 17 markets, everything from Phoenix, Vegas, Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, Orlando, and we're moving up into New Jersey right now. And so the East Coast, where we're going up to, we're being pulled up by our clients. What they're seeing is that they're able to get the supported rent increases, which is giving them a positive NOI, but it's also driving the asset value. So depending on where they're at in their process and how they want to exit, if they want to exit, this is a big driver. And there's some other factors too. And so some of the things I would share is some of them are looking at it as a way to do accelerated depreciation. That was a new one for me. You know, I got it, but accelerated depreciation, where they're trying to put it all in and then take the benefits of tax laws. And you know, I'm not a tax specialist, but I'd say they're using it for those purposes, or they're deferring their profits because they're waiting for new tax laws to take hold. So they'll say, look, we're going to spend it on a CapEx project. You're not too expensive. You're just kind of right in line. Let's do that. And then move into next year, looking at what we can do from a tax or a profitability stance, giving out profits to our clients. So different tactics.
Yeah, really interesting though, that I mean, different tactics to realize value out of a closet, right? So
correct.
So the closets that are going in are kind of these like modular systems where you can configure different shelving, different drawers,
correct.
Things like that, and it's much more like something which is behind you, right? But for the folks that can't see, something that's more like what you would see in kind of a high-end home, right? With
right.
these, like, you know, these racks and these shelves and drawers and all different things that you can put in to really create more usable space, like you said.
Yeah, I'd say the one thing that we get asked a lot immediately when people look at our product is it must be too expensive. And so what I always tell people, look, if you look at the numbers, to get the ROI that we're looking for you as a client, we have calculators, just like everyone should, to say, look, here's what the investment dollars are. Here's what my rent supports are. Here's what I'm looking at on this. What we can tell you is that because we're vertically integrated, we do all of our own supply chain control and manufacturing the product, we're cutting out all the middle people. Yeah. And we do this typically on the turns. So that's another important factor that makes us very unique. We're not going in and saying, look, let's do all 300 units or 200 or 100 units. We're saying, look, let's do it on the make-readies or the turns so that you're cash flowing on this. And you can do it then. So that allows you to, or replacing when the residents are vacating the property. And so they're seeing an immediate rent increase with the installation of our product on the next lease up or lease. So for us, it takes about 2 to 2.5 hours to do an installation. So we're quickly in and out. And what I can tell you is that for most of our client base, what they'll come back and say is, what is the cost? And I don't mind telling you, something like this where it's behind me is a lot more cost But for our average closet across the country, we're looking at an installation kit of about $750. That's material, labor, all encompassing. Now, certain markets where the labor pool is more expensive and so forth, then it's going to be something greater than that. But typically, there's higher rent supports there too. So, like in California, we have clients that are getting $85 rent increases per month, and it's because they're paying $2,000 to $5,000 a month in rent. So, yeah. It's comparable to the marketplace, and so typically sub $1,000 is what I tell people to allocate depending on the market and the size. We're taking average closet size of an apartment, and that's what our average is around $750 fully turnkey.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, and that's how you're realizing that return on investment so quickly. If you're able to spend $750 to get a $35 a month rent increase, that's less than 2 years to realize your value there. So that's
correct. And strategically, you'd made a point to say, kind of where Clozzits is today. One of the things that we recognize, we had clients, they have these different portfolios that perform at different levels. And some of our clients would come in and say, we really love the product, but we don't have CapEx. We're not able to spend the money. We just don't have it right now.
Yeah.
So what we did is, sitting down and talking to him, is we created a lease to purchase program for 4 years where we're the financing arm of that.
Very smart.
And it's unsecured, because we recognize, talking to the lien holders, we talk to them, they say, look, you can't have a second lien on the property even.
Right.
So we said, well, look, we're so committed to it. We know it's going to work. No one's created a lease to purchase program. Let's just lease to purchase it. And they'll get, cash flow positive day one.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic idea. And we've had success with other programs with a very similar model, because that's the barrier on renovation, right? If you're not
Correct.
building from the ground up, if you're trying to renovate a property, if I just learned about this today, which I am, but I haven't, and because I didn't know about it, I haven't planned that in my CapEx schedule. And in my world, as we're syndicating properties and I haven't raised the money to do that work, then right, there's no pool to pull from. Even if there is a great return, there's no pool of money to pull from to implement the program. So I think that financing piece is really what's going to make it accessible to all the apartments that already exist out there, and those owners that are, that have owned it for maybe 2 to 3 years, even, that have already burned through their CapEx from their initial business plan. So yeah, no, I love hearing that. I think that really makes it accessible to folks.
Yeah. And I think the big one too is, if you're doing a renovation right now, there's so many other factors that are into, such as the cost of materials, wood.
Right.
I was looking at copper wiring just recently. The cost of that going up, and your labor and so forth. And so for a lot of groups, if they're budgeting for a CapEx of this here now, we're one of those ones where they have to go, we'd really love to work with you, but we just can't. And it's a reality. We understand that. But having this arm, what this has allowed a lot of our clients to do, and prospective clients to do, is say, yeah, I can do that, and I can recognize that, as long as they feel comfortable with it. And like I said, the biggest thing that we came up with was making it such that it's unsecured, so that, again, it meets the mortgage requirements of your primary, liens and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that, I love learning about stuff like this, because I think that, the normal, in my opinion, and this is our strategy follows this, is the normal interior upgrades that you are commonplace, whether it's flooring, countertops, light fixtures, things. Those are all commoditized, and they're all, everybody's doing the same thing for the most part. If you look around the industry, no matter what city you go to and you pull up a couple apartments, you're going to see the same stuff, the same materials, the same paint colors, the same flooring colors, same countertop. So it's a commodity in a lot of ways. And I think this is a way to stay ahead of the curve and start to differentiate yourself again, which is a lot of what we're trying to focus on in our strategy, is doing things that set us apart. Like whether it's installing high-speed internet on our properties, or it's creating community-based amenities like community gardens and things like that. I think this is another thing that really follows in that mindset of continuing to differentiate. And that's, I think, why you're seeing those rent increases that you're seeing.
Correct. Yeah, that's one of the things that it's always funny when we start testing, and typically we'll beta test with a client, say, look, you're not comfortable with it yet, so let's go beta test. And typically they will put us in the clients test us, and they'll say, hey, it's amazing. We got rim up. Like, oh yeah, we got the rim up included. And so it's funny to see how some of these will test. And we're like, okay, which one is it? The one with the dead body? What's the story here? Okay, so one of the things that our clients do is they will beta test with us. They're not fully sold on the concept, so they'll go in and test it in property sets, and we'll do 3 to 10 minutes. And typically they're throwing us the more difficult ones, the ones that have been on the market the longest, the ones that have a very unique floor plan, unique meaning hard to rent, and other situations that may come up. So one of the things we'll do is we'll go in and do that. And so some of the things that ownership has really thought about in other situations is this ability to not only be a differentiator in the marketplace, but can it, raise rents, but can it help us impact the time on market between leasing up, and some of these are even taking it to the level now, Ken, where they're using it as a lease up opportunity instead of giving that concession where they're saying, hey, here's a month, 2 months of free rent. Yeah. Let us come in and put an upgraded closet in for you because we're doing something to justify that 2 to 5% rent increase that we're getting ready to tack on. Yeah. So it's very clever things from a marketing point of view that a lot of them are doing, but it kind of starts with a beta test, and each property, each complex is a little different. You know this, they each have their own character, their own style, and how they perform and what the competition is around them. And so it doesn't work on every complex. And what I mean by that is it's not ideal for every complex, but it is, as our clients go through and they do their numbers, they'll say, look, it's good for this one. We need to do it here. Or we have a lower performing one. We need to do it here. Or frankly, we get clients that'll call us up and say, hey, we noticed that you're installing over across the street, a couple, miles down the road with your closet system. We need to install it in this one now because that's just where the market is leveling up. Yeah. And to your point, we believe we're the next amenity set to really take off. I know technology is a big one. Yeah. Technology comes at some significant cost. Yeah. And it can break down. There's some challenges with that, and there are things that you can do. And so when I see us competing against dollars, it's really, should we be doing this kind of upgrade versus this? And so, for us, our clients are realizing this is a minimally invasive upgrade that is yielding this. And let's move forward on that, especially with the financing arm to it now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Jim, I think it makes a ton of sense. You got me sold. We need to start looking into some closets and how we can upgrade. Right. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on and sharing the story of your company and this unique niche that you're in. I mean, I expect that closets will become that next commodity that we're talking about where you have to have the upgraded closet, right? It becomes the expectation. Right. So
that is our goal.
Yeah, it'd be very cool to see that play out. And well, awesome. Before I let you go, I want to move right into our keys to success. I've got 4 questions I want to ask you. And the first one is, and I know that we didn't talk about this much, but I know you shared with me that you also own 5,000 units. And yes. That's the portfolio that you were testing on as you started, right? Correct. So putting that investor hat on, what is one question that every investor should ask their deal sponsor before making an investment?
So this is all by trial by fire for me. So when I got into this, really didn't have that experience. And so one of the very first questions I would be asking is, what is your experience? Not just in what kind of returns I can get, but what is your experience? And talk to me about a situation that went wrong. And the reason why, Ken, is my very first deal went wrong in a horrible way. We got into the property. We had not done great due diligence, cost us a fortune to get out of it. And it was just, it wasn't quite what was projected. You know, we got in there and the rent rolls weren't right. The vacancy levels were much higher than we thought.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more repairs. They'd really put it together with bubble gum and duct tape. And we found out that we're going to have to replace our roof. Now we're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on things. And so I would be asking, talk to me about a bad situation and really, how did you correct from it? That's really what you're trying to figure out. Because with your experience, even, I'm sure you've run into these situations that there's these unexpecteds. And for us, we realized very quickly we were in the deep end of the pool, and we didn't have a life preserver. That the money we'd allocate wasn't even be close to enough. So I would be asking, talk to me about a challenge situation and how did you overcome that? Did you overcome that? What was the outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question, and you're trying to vet out a little bit. I mean, yeah, how do they deal with problems? Because inevitably problems are going to come up, right? And it's how you solve them. But then also, like, I think validating that they already have some lessons learned, so they're not going to be learning those lessons on your
dime,
right? Yeah,
exactly right. And we were learning very, very difficult ones, and you learn from that and you move on. And granted, you're going to run into others, but it's really about your experience and the management group and the management companies behind that. Mm-hmm. Get the water, because you know it's about protecting your investment, but you can also, I mean, it's an investment. There are risks.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question. So what are you most proud of in your career?
So I've built and sold a number of companies. So I think I'm most proud of the cultures that we've created in these companies. If you're looking from a business point of view, I'm proud of many things, but it's I like to lead by a compassionate leadership style. And so my people really do matter to me in every company. I see people that call me today, tell me their life, and I may have not seen them in 10 to 12, 15 years. But I still feel very proud to be able to look and talk to these people and find out what they're doing in their life and how impactful the company, not even me, but the company was in their lives. I mean, my VP of Ops just called me a couple of days ago and was talking. He's like, hey, I just had a guy call me up out of the blue that I hadn't talked to in 5 years. And something I said to him has resonated all these years. And that's what I feel like we're doing, is pouring into our people here. And that gets pushed out to our clients and ultimately to the residents. But really, I'm most proud of our culture and the cultures of the companies I've created and moved on with and seen on, and the people that we have. Amazing people.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I mean, I think that's something to be incredibly proud of, and you're making a long-term impact on people's lives. And
absolutely,
yeah, that's great. And it's something that's not focused on, that culture aspect, something that's not, maybe it's focused on a lot. You know, I've been a part of many companies as employees and owners, and something that's talked about a lot, but often not implemented in the right way. So it sounds like you guys have that down and really making an impact.
We are. I tell you, we do a lot of philanthropic things within the organization. We have a standing meeting every day with every employee, and we ask them from a scale from 1 to 10 where they're at personally and professionally. And I've done that in almost every company I've ever had. And you have people that come in. I mean, let's be real. We have people that come in. I've got a employee right now whose parents, both his parents are up in their years, and they're both having significant health issues. And you have to look at it and go, I need you to do your job. And I get that as an entrepreneur and owner, but he's living a very difficult life right now. And so how can we best support him, both emotionally in his work-related life, but also his personal life? So those are all really important things to me and to all the staff that we bring into the companies I've been involved in.
Yeah, very cool. So what books should everybody read?
So if I give two, one is Traction. So Traction, if you're not familiar with it, it's a book about scaling, and Blitzkrieg by Reid Hoffman. co-founder of LinkedIn. They're all about scaling companies and about replication